So in this video, we have two objectives. Our first is to learn how to graph an inequality, and the second we'll see how to solve and then graph the inequality. So one thing that I want to focus on is helping you to understand what an inequality means and the fact that an inequality has multiple solutions to it. So when we solve equations, we get one answer, and that's the only value that will make the equation true. With an inequality, you get an infinite number of solutions to the inequality. So we're going to start by graphing and talking about at least three values that will make this inequality true. So when you graph, you start with a number line, and I like to put my solution in the middle. So what we're doing right now is we're graphing the solution to an inequality, and then when we get to solving the inequality, we can just focus on the solving because we'll already know how to graph. I like to put my solution in the middle and then a couple of numbers on either side. If your inequality is greater than or less than, you will use an open circle. What the open circle means is that that value is not part of your solution. So think about substituting 3 back into the inequality for y. If I say 3 is less than 3, that's not true. 3 is not less than 3. 3 is equal to 3. Since that does not make the inequality true, we do not count it as part of our solution. Our solutions will be shaded. So if you have the greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, you shade in or have a closed circle. And then finally, you shade in the correct direction. So if your variable is less than, and be careful because if your variable isn't on the left, you have to kind of read the inequality backwards. If your variable is less than, you shade the smaller values, which are to the left of your circle, and then greater than are greater values, which are to the right of your circle. Well, we have y is less than 3, so we are going to shade the values on our number line that are less than 3. So that's the first part, that's the graphing. The second part is listing 3 values that will make it true. Any value less than 3 will make this inequality true. And instead of picking the obvious ones like integers, I'm going to say y could be 2.9, y could be negative 3,768 and 2/5, or y could be 0.68. So any value less than 3 would make this inequality true. And of course, the obvious ones, 2, 1, 0, etc., would make it true as well. All right, so we've got another graphing one. Starting by our number line, putting the solution in the middle of the number line. So we've got -5. Now when you're on the negative side of the number line, make sure that you have your numbers in numeric order. -6 is less than -5, which is less than -4. Either open or closed circle. This time we have x is greater than or equal to -5. Notice that I read this inequality backwards, starting with the x, and the inequality is open towards x, so x is greater than. But the or equal to means we will close in our circle, because if we substitute -5 for x, that statement is true. -5 is less than or equal to -5. So we'll shade that in for a true statement, and then we figure out which direction to shade. And since my calibration's off, this time again, read from the variable. X is greater than or equal to -5, so we will be shading to the right. And finally, we're going to list 3 values to make this inequality true. So I can pick -4 1/2. I could have x is equal to 3/8, or x could equal 100. And in order to make sure that you have the correct solution, you could substitute it back into your inequality. If maybe you got confused because the variable was on the wrong side, if I put, let's say, 100 in for x, I can double check to make sure that that's a true statement. Is -5 less than or equal to 100? Yes, so I'm picking values in the correct direction. All right, just because I know you will not want 3 videos, this one will be a little bit longer. We're going to see 2 solving, and then we'll be done. So the solving part is exactly the same as solving an equation. You use the golden rule of algebra. I'm going to set this up again so I can show my work a little more clearly. And whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. The only thing you need to keep in mind is if you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality symbol. This goes back to what we figured out in our investigation. So I'm going to start by subtracting 6 from both sides. So 10 is greater than negative 2r. Don't lose the negative in front of your variable. Now to solve, I am going to divide both sides by negative 2. And when you multiply or divide by a negative, your inequality flips in order to keep it a true statement. And then finally we'll graph, which we already learned, so I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. Your solution goes in the middle with at least one number on either side. R is greater than, so that's an open circle. And this one you'll have to read backwards. R is greater than, so we're going to shade to the right. Last example. Same thing, use the golden rule of algebra. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3 from both sides. Careful with your negatives here. Negative 37 plus negative 3 is negative 40. Dividing both sides by a positive 4. The value I'm dividing by is positive, so my inequality stays the same direction, and we get negative 10. So now we're going to graph. Set up your number line. Put your solution in the middle with one number bigger and one number smaller on either side. This time it's an or equal to, so my circle will be shaded. And we've got to read it backwards again. G is less than or equal to, so we're going to shade to the left. And sorry about that little note, but I'm at the end of a 7-minute video, so we'll just leave it in there. Have a great weekend. I will see you Monday.